again. Give me about 5 seconds.
Okay.
4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. We are back in session after about a 10 or 15 minute recess now that Mr. Parkinson has arrived. Thank you, Dave, for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
All right. I just sort of prefaced your invite and gave the folks here an overhead view, a high view of the combination of the two grants from February 1 and June 1 being combined into one, due on or about March 15th of this year, and possibilities of pursuing it. As I understand it, there's 150,000 roughly available, with up to an 80% reimbursement, possibly. These two grants are basically targeted through the ODNR for trail work. So it kind of helps us in what we want to do in terms of out the reservoir with the development of a gravel trail of about 150,000 there. So anyhow, I thought I'd just let you take the floor and explain to the folks here what you had talked to me about yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. There's two programs going on through ODNR. One is the Recreational Trails Fund program, and the other is the Clean Ohio Trails Fund program. They both focus on trails, but in slightly different arenas. The Clean Ohio Trails Fund is really geared and focused on long, linear, interconnecting type trails, the Ohio to Erie Trail, for example, things like that. They're not so much interested on little trails around town, unless you can make an argument that it connects to long linear trails on either side of the town. The Recreational Trails program, on the other hand, is really geared toward your local little trails, toward trailheads, toward recreational opportunities along those lines. So from the perspective of our reservoir project and what we're thinking we want to do there, the Recreational Trails program probably fits best. Although we could make a case for the Clean Ohio Trails program, but it might not be as strong as through the Recreational Trails. It's an interesting deal where it's the exact same application, and up on the first line, there's 2 boxes, and you can check one or both of them. So for the same amount of effort, literally the same amount of effort, you can apply for both to both grants without.
Maximum award for both combined is 150, right?
No, the RTF is the Recreational Trails grant is 150 maximum grant. Okay. The maximum grant for Clean Ohio is 500,000.
Oh, okay.
The matching fund for Recreational Trails is 20%. The matching fund for Clean Ohio is 25%. Now that's the minimum that you have to match. It was suggested by ODNR and by our grants experts that sometimes applications are given an extra point or two if the local match exceeds the minimum. So if you were to offer 30, 40, 50% local share instead of 20, you might get a point over someone that only offered 20% match. That allows ODNR to drive value. So if they have 1.9 million in the Recreational Trail Fund to spread all over Ohio, if they did it $150,000 at a time, you can do the math. I think that's 12 or 13 projects that they can fund over the entire state. Mm-hmm. So if they can get applicants to increase their local share, the state's 1.9 million drives higher value of projects. It also allows them perhaps to fund greater numbers of projects as well. And so they like that idea. Now they can't tell you, there's no number, there's no defined table that says this percent equals that number, this percent equals that number. It doesn't work like that. If we put in 25%, say, and every other application put in 40, we don't look as good as every other application. But if we put in 50 and every other application put in 25, we went way beyond what we had to do. And there is no way to know what that is. We at CT generally say that you're in pretty good shape if you're in the 30 to 40 range, somewhere in there. But you don't have to be. You can apply and put in 20. And if you've got a really, really strong application, then it can overcome that. This isn't the deciding factor of whether you get a loan or you don't, or whether you get a grant or you don't get one. It's just a matter of a point or two, and sometimes a point or two makes a difference. So, and it is one of the things that you can, obviously you have discretion on what it is you put into your application. It's not a quick process. The applications are due on March 15th. And from March 15th through August 1st, ODNR visits each and every application site that was submitted. And they do an in-field review. And then in October or November of this year, they will conclude with their recommendations and their approvals and notify the agencies. There's probably a month in there of contract, here, sign here, send us this, et cetera. So, somewhere around November, December, you'll have your agreement if you're funded, and then you have 15 months to build it. Well, 15 months puts us into 2023. So we're not going to build this thing until 2022 and possibly not finish it until 2023, depending on how big a scope we bake. So it's not something that's going to happen this year. I guess is what I want to say. It's a 2022 project, and possibly, like I said, finishing in 2023. Okay. Clean Ohio, both programs function under the exact same schedule. So one is not faster than the other. The Recreational Trails program, excuse me, gets their money from the Federal Highway Administration. So every federal thing that you can think of is tagged to this. You've got federal relocation requirements. So if you have to purchase any easements or property, we don't, but if you did, you'd have to do all of that under the federal acquisition requirements. We have NEPA standards requirements. So we've got to go through all the environmental stuff for the RTF program. Now the beauty is that most projects like ours, I'm going to get a little technical, they fall under something called a categorical exemption. So all you have to do is prove that you don't have to do all the NEPA stuff. So you still got to do a bunch of environmental stuff, but what you're doing is proving that you don't have to do all the NEPA stuff. And most of the projects like we do fall under that category. For the Clean Ohio program, that's funded through bonds sold by the state of Ohio. I think it was issue 1 or issue 2 a couple of years ago that authorized another $400 million in bonds for these programs. And they, so Clean Ohio has $6.25 million to give away annually for the trails programs. Again, at $500,000 a project, that's 12, 13 projects a year get funded across the state. So there aren't a lot of projects, when you think about it. 24 projects for 88 counties is all that, there's no guarantee that every county gets a project funded. So those are those two programs. We have a lot of experience in the applications. We've got some of the groundwork laid. It wouldn't be terribly difficult to get this done. If council could authorize us to get started on the application or applications by January 20th, I think we'd be in good shape. That'd give us a little over 7 weeks pull all this together. As you recall, we always have to have public meetings for this. We have to, where'd you go, Tim? There you are. We have to have some public outreach, get some feedback, include those in with our applications. We're going to want to get some letters of support from some of the local entities to help us with that as well. So 7 weeks it's not tight. It's a good comfortable period to put these applications together for you.
Okay, thank you. What would be what's your thought, Dave, in terms of applying for the recreational grant by itself and making that particular grant the application, the Reservoir Trail?
I think that's a good project for it, and I wouldn't disagree with that approach. Let me give you a good example of what a good Clean Ohio's Trails program or project would be, and that would be if we wanted to undertake closing the gap on the trail that goes through town, where the trail now stops there behind Tommy's house.
Yes.
Okay. And we can't get through Duncan. Is it Duncan Oil?
Yes.
Yeah, Duncan now, yeah.
Yeah, Duncan Oil. And then there's a plumber, and then there's Scott Fodor. And then there's a bridge over 37. That's going to be an expensive and tough little section to get done. But that closes a gap on the Ohio to Erie Trail. I'd almost bet my house that we would get funded for that if we could put that together. And so maybe that's something we start thinking about for next year.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. We got some
We don't have
budgeting
time
constraints.
today to do it, but maybe next year. So if it's of an interest, we want to start talking with all the stakeholders and our partners, like Preservation Parks and others, to see how we can get this going and maybe have really serious and meaningful discussions with the property owners.
Dave,
That sounds like a really good idea, but whatever you do, don't bet your house.
Okay.
Dave Parkinson, is the Clean Ohio grant program what Preservation Parks is currently utilized here in the last few years to do the big chunks of Ohio to Erie Trail,
Yes.
like Merrick and to Sunbury and all that?
Yes, that's one of the granting opportunities they lean on heavily.
Yeah, and I guess I was always under the understanding that they were going to continue to utilize those funds to bring the trail this way, and I wouldn't have ruled out them petitioning that grant for that project in Sunbury. Would there be any advantage if we teamed up with them in some way or made it kind of a joint request? Does that score any more boxes?
I think yes, and I think it needs to be because part of the challenge is they're going to put their own applications in, and so we really don't want to be competing with them. We want to be teaming on this. I suspect, as you know, the trail currently stops about 1.5 miles outside of town right now. I suspect they'll be applying this year to close that, to bring that into Walnut Road.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yep. And then if we could perhaps then gear up for the following year to double team with them and you got some big ticket items like a bridge in there. And so, that might be just thinking out loud, perhaps a meeting with Tom Curtin and Preservation Parks at some point wouldn't be a bad joint meeting to have.
I've broached that with Matt Simpson over there, and he's still a little focused on the stuff that he's doing out east, and he hasn't been real excited about getting distracted and coming into town just yet.
Okay.
Good. In terms of maximum exposure from money-wise for the Village of Sunbury, Dave P., let's assume we do decide to pursue the $150,000 for the Reservoir Trail. And let's say 125,000 or something is awarded, and we plugged in our 25, let's say 30% match. Worst case scenario, village maybe be exposed to $40,000 for
Well,
the construction.
If you ask for and get 120,000, you're going to put in 30. Your project's $171,000.
171. Okay.
And
So,
then you take out and so 30% of that is about 51,000, and that gives you your 120
okay.
for the grant. So if you want to lower that number, we come up with maybe a $150,000 project, and 70% of that is 105,000, and so now your exposure is 45,000.
Okay.
The interesting thing is, since you're doing a 70-30 split, for every $10,000 you take off your project, you're only taking 3,000 off
Right.
your local share. So,
Okay. I think that fits in with what I've been led to believe might be available end of this year into next year. So what would we need to do between now and the next meeting, Dave P., to help you all at CT prepare for maybe pursuing that? Should we call another meeting a couple weeks from now to sort of drill this down further? We're going to have to get to, like you say,
I want to be careful here how I say this. All I need is direction from council.
all right.
Authorization from council to move forward with an application to Recreational Trails program, for a project, of approximately 120,000, 150,000 as discussed, as directed by the Parks Committee or something. Maybe they can back to you guys to work with me on what it is we're actually applying for.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd like to do a little more research
But
with Kathy and Alan for the next 2 weeks, and maybe in 2 weeks we have another parks meeting before the council meeting, just to get our ducks in line. And then
again, I'd like to start on the 20th. So if when we go to council on the 20th, there can be a motion or something that directs us to proceed with preparing the application, then I have something on the record. So when I send a bill to the village for our work, there's no question as to, well, who authorized this, and what fund does it come out of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
gotcha.
I want to be careful. I haven't had that problem yet. And I want to say that I haven't had it because I'm pretty snooty about this kind of thing. I just don't go off and start billing stuff without council knowing about it. So
Exactly. Okay. Dave, Martin, any other guidance or advice? Anything else?
No, I'm just listening in here.
With Dave Parkinson, we'd need monies for like a task order or something. So what kind of additional monies would be necessary for the preparation of the grant? And then we'd also have to do design and bidding costs and that kind of thing too? Or is that rolled into the project?
we'll do the design and bidding after you get your grant.
Okay, but is that additional cost to us then? Or is that, yeah, okay.
That 171,000 that you had placed in the cost estimate for that trail out there, is that all fees or excluding design and build?
I honestly can't remember if there were.
I kind of thought you had worked some of that into that number.
We might have.
I think.
Well, we just need to make sure we know exactly what the costs are, so there's no surprises. That's my only.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, especially when council votes on it.
Costs are, because each one is a case by case. Generally, for something like this, we just do it under our general engineering agreement. Kathy has a blanket PO for that. We keep track of it. We'll put a job number so all the time is aggregated together, and you can see what we're doing and what we're spending. But
All right, we're running a little bit short on time. I think what we'll do is maybe target the 20th meeting and set another brief parks meeting before that, just to drill it down and make sure everybody's on board with what we want to do.
you know, I'll spend another hour, Tim, reviewing that cost estimate we prepared for you last year.
Okay.
And coming up with just an idea of how many hours I think we need to put you together a pretty competitive application. And I'll get that to you before the end of the week. I'll get that to the committee before the end of the week.
Okay, excellent. Thanks a lot, Dave P. That's all I had. Anything else, anybody?
Yeah, I've got a question for Alan, nothing to do with the meeting.
Well, then I can talk to you right after the meeting. I'll stay on.
We'll go ahead. Motion for adjournment,
So moved.
and Al second. Go ahead, Al.
Okay, Martin,
Yes.
Ghost.
Yes, sir.
Okay.